The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power into creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How is it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. I'm not quite sure what background we have up on the stream right now. It looks like some kind of Roman Colosseum setting.
Same thing. As soon as it came up, I was like, how did we go back to the cloisters? Like, no idea.
That's throwing me off. Is it just this one? Is this us? That looks more like us. Okay. We're in good shape now. Thank you all for being on the show this week. I'm so happy that you're all joining us. We got ourselves a fine program. Before we start, I wanted to give a quick little programming note here. Somebody asked me, because we've been getting a lot of new viewers and listeners on the program lately. We always get new faces, and we love the new faces. We love it when people find this show wherever they find it. We love the people who discover it. And inevitably, when people discover this show, they have some questions about things that we haven't explained in a long time, references and things like that. And so I want to catch some of the new people up. But one of these new viewers and listeners asked me, where did you get that intro song from? The Break the Business song. Break the business, play is work, work is play. And so I just want to quickly mention it for the new people. That song was written by an artist named Jonathan Mann, who is a fantastic indie artist, has been doing it for a long time. Absolutely incredible dude. We actually just play a small snippet of that song. That is actually a full-length song. If you go to Jonathan Mann's YouTube page, you can find the full song if you search Break the Business Jonathan Mann. It's a fantastic song. One of the things that makes Jonathan so special is that he is actually the Guinness World Record holder. It's actually officially a Guinness World Record for most consecutive days writing a song. He has written a new original song every day for like 5,500 days now. I think he's at like about 16 years of writing new original music, a new song a day man, they call him. What an amazing dude. And frankly, I feel so honored that he allowed us to be one of the songs that has been part of his record-breaking streak. I think we were like song 3,000 something. I'd have to check the exact number. And I love that we play a very small part of this Guinness World Record. And I love that Jonathan's still keeping it going to this day. So that's the backstory behind the Break the Business theme. And I love it. Every time I hear that song, it makes me so, so happy. And speaking of people who make me happy every time I see them, I want to talk to producer Lauren for a second. Producer Lauren, are you there?
I am. I'm sitting here looking up Jonathan Mann and our song, and I believe that it is number 4,667.
4667. Well, thanks for the update on that. So now the viewers and listeners who want to hear the full song, and I encourage them to do so, right? Because you've heard the song many times. It is a banger.
Yeah, they have to make it through the other 4,666 first.
Yeah, you have to listen to the songs in order. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
I'd be interested. We should do some like quick multiplication division here. Like, let's assume every song is like 3 minutes long. How long would it take a person to listen to the entire Jonathan Mann catalog back to back?
Ooh.
I mean, if any of our viewers and listeners in the chat, if anybody wants to do that math for us, I don't want to do that math right now.
I say, let's just do a minute for each, because then we just have to be like, 5,000 songs, 5,000 minutes. Because some of them are super short. I
mean, it might not be as long as we think. Because Rent tells us that there's 525,600 minutes in a year.
Wow.
And so 15,000 minutes, which would be about 5,000 songs times 3 minutes, is but a small fraction of that. So you could probably bang it out in like a week, 2 weeks, something like that.
The question is, what would take longer? listening to Jonathan Mann's collection or making it through the extended versions of Lord of the Rings.
Oof, that's a noodle scratcher. We're going to get the boys in the lab to crunch some numbers for us, and we'll come back with everybody for that next week. You, Lauren, are yet another thing that people love about this show. People enjoy that you are the one that is behind the scenes keeping this thing running, that you often pop in with cool, fun, interesting insights. Because in addition to bringing this podcast to us as the producer, you're also an established entertainment industry professional. You brought many shows to life. You've been in front of the camera, on the stage, behind the camera, backstage, and in every setting, you do amazing things. And so your perspective, your expertise is certainly welcomed here. People love you. People think that we're husband and wife because of the identical last name, and we always have to absolve them of that. We are brother and sister. And have had the pleasure of, how long have you been producing this program now? A couple years?
5? It's pretty easy to do math because we started in the pandemic. So we just kind of go 2020 is 2025. We're going to go 5 years.
Oh, but have we been live streaming for 5 years?
I think so, either 4 or 5, because we definitely did our fundraiser like benefit marathon in 2020.
Oh yeah, but we didn't start doing live
because that was live
programs
and I got to put
during that
cream
pandemic show.
Hi, right in your
but,
face.
I mean, I think we've celebrated episode 300 and 400 on this live stream together.
Yeah,
so we've been doing it for at least that long. So it's been a bit.
A couple hundred episodes, yeah.
And I've definitely enjoyed that time with you, Lauren. You've helped bring the show to a whole other level, and we very much appreciate it. Have a couple pretty interesting stories to chat with you about, including one that sort of hits close to home here at Break the Business, because it involves one of our very recent Break the Business guests. We had her on like maybe 5 weeks ago. Do you remember when we interviewed singer-songwriter and copyright advocate Lana Love on this program?
Oh, yeah. That was super recent.
Like not even that long ago. Even the new viewers and listeners know what's up when we talk about Lana Love.
That was 5 episodes ago? So yeah, 5 weeks.
I think that sounds about right, because it was 2 Zach Sloan co-hosts ago. That's how I do all time now. I divide it up by Break the Business co-hosts.
I love that.
Yeah, but this is pretty wild. I was thumbing through Variety, as I often do, reading the trades, and I saw an article about how a independent artist was duped into being on a fake reality singing competition that was conducted by comedian Nathan Fielder. Most people know Nathan as the host of The Rehearsal, which is a very popular program on HBO, he creates these like very vast hidden camera reality show stunts that he does on The Rehearsal. And he's been doing this for a long time. He had a Comedy Central show called Nathan For You, which was kind of a similar format. But now Nathan Fielder does this show called The Rehearsal. And on one of the episodes of The Rehearsal, he put on a fake reality singing competition. A bunch of people auditioned for what they thought was a real reality singing show like American Idol, but it turned out the whole thing was completely fake for Nathan Fielder's show. And one of the artists who was duped into being on this show thinking it was a real competition was our friend, Break the Business guest, Lana Love. And she wrote an article. She was interviewed in Variety talking all about how kind of crappy this experience was for her.
How long did this, is it just the audition? Was it like we held a big cattle call and let's see what happened. And then they were like, haha, you're on camera. Or how long was this duping?
Well, like most Nathan Fielder projects, and most Nathan Fielder fans know this, he never does anything just by dipping his toe in the water. Every one of these stunts that he does is super over the top, has many moving parts, is complicated. It usually takes place over the course of weeks. And so this wasn't just Lana Love showing up to one audition as a cattle call. She went to multiple callbacks. She was auditioning in like multiple settings. She wrote in the article, or she said in the article when she was interviewed, she wound up spending over $5,000 of her own money in flights from and to Los Angeles to do this thing, spending money on hair and makeup. She teaches music lessons, so she was foregoing music lessons she's foregoing work to be on this program. And so she gave up a lot. This was a pretty significant undertaking for her, all of it to turn out being fake.
I've never done a reality show. Like, at what point do contracts come in? Like, at what point okay, fine. At the audition, who knows? People show up. You never know what's going to happen. But like, once you're flying in and out in an equity contract, after the third audition, they have to pay you to audition. Like, how?
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that, right? Because she is union. She's SAG-AFTRA. And so I think by the third audition, some of the people who were participating in this were actually paid. Like some people got
okay.
50, like I'm telling you, this was pretty involved. And there were lots of contracts, which is how she had every reason to believe this was a real competition. Like this didn't look sketchy. They were giving her real contracts. She was negotiating them back and forth.
Oh, okay.
With what she thought were producers. And like there was even a point where they were, they gave her contract language that said she had to assign the rights in her own original songs to be on this show. And she wrote them back and said, no, you have to take this out. And they took it out. Like there were like, this is a whole Megillah. Like there was a whole thing going on here. And she had every reason to believe this was real. And eventually she kind of realized that something fishy was going on. A lot of things didn't look right. And she started telling other contestants, I think this is fake. But by then the damage was already done. She had already spent a lot of time and money on this competition. And I mean, I know a lot of people think this is funny. And, I think Nathan Fielder can be funny sometimes. I think that a lot of the stuff that Nathan Fielder does can be very hurtful to unsuspecting people. But I get that it's performance art, and I want to give artists space to be artists. But I mean, this is a terrifying prospect, and because it already taps into some of my worst fears that I have for artists. Something you need to know about me as an entertainment lawyer, for those who don't know, I am always very, very, very skeptical when artists get deals to be on these competition shows. Whenever an artist comes to me and says, hey, I'm going to be on, I have the opportunity to be on American Idol, to be on The Voice, to be on So You Think You Can Dance, any of these kind of shows. And I've had clients who've been on all these programs. Whenever they come to me and say, like, what do you think? Here's the contract. Should I do this? My answer is always no. I say, don't do it. It's most likely not going to give you the return on investment that you think it does. Even the people who win these damn things nowadays, you never hear from them again. I've had clients who finished top 5 on very prominent network reality shows who, like, you wouldn't know them if they kissed you on the mouth. And because the whole purpose of these shows is not to make you famous. It's to make the show popular and maybe to increase the celebrity status of the judges who are involved, like your Luke Bryans and your Katy Perrys, who are the judges on these programs. It's not to break artists anymore. And so for most artists, it's not the what you think it's going to be. And for the rest, even the artists who don't win, they don't get much from it. And that's the shows that you've heard of. Like, those are the big popular ones. I'm always fearful when an artist comes to me and says, hey, I have the opportunity to be on a competition show and I've never heard of it. And the artist has never heard of it because they say, oh, it's a new show. I've had those clients before. And what I would say to those clients is what I would say to Lana Love if she were my client at the time and she got pitched this show to me. I would say, I've never heard of this show. Be careful. A reality show like this is dangerous enough, even if it's a known quantity on a known network. If it is a completely new show that has no track record, that has no history, the chances of you, really kind of having a big disaster from being on the show are quite high. But in my craziest fears, I would never imagine that what a client would bring to me was a Nathan Fielder reality stunt. That's terrifying. I mean, God, if I had a client who sent me those contracts and I reviewed those contracts and they went on the show and that happened to them, I would be devastated as their lawyer. I'd be so embarrassed.
Well, and I guess the problem with the contracts in those shows is that they very seldom offer anything unless you win anyway. So like you have to be like, well, they have to hold up their end. And it's like their end says, unless you win, we don't do anything. And one of the things I advise, people all the time is, if they make you use your photographer, if they make you use their, promo package, like don't spend your money trying to get work or trying to get somebody to hire you. If you can get there easily and you have a place to stay, that's one thing. The second that they say to you, like, you have to do this and you have to lose work, you have to weigh out for yourself whether it can really be worth it. Because when you have to spend money to hope to get recognized, not spending money to make money, spending money in hopes of somebody wanting to possibly maybe work with you, like it's your investment potential there,
And I think Lana's story goes to show you how easy it is for artists to get suckered into these things.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you hear of a story like this, the first thought is, oh, the person who got duped into it, this must have been somebody who just came off the turnip truck.
No.
This is a young ingenue who doesn't know better, and that's how they got suckered into it. That's not Lana Love. Lana is a well-known independent artist. She's put out lots of music. She's achieved a lot of career success. She's been on these reality competitions shows before and has done well on them. This is a known quantity in this industry. And if she can get tricked, anybody can get tricked. And that's terrifying to me, how easy it is to play on these artists' desires to want to achieve fame that makes them so vulnerable to these kind of horrific acts of duplicity.
And you're talking about vulnerability, like going into an audition in general is exposing yourself to people straight up for them to judge you and to critique you and to like find flaws in you. And you have to put yourself out there to audition for something, period, knowing that the odds are against you, right? And so when you're already thinking that the odds are against you and knowing that there are people out there also trying to scam you, like that's the last thing we need in that industry. Anything you have to audition for is hard enough. Like play pranks on people who aren't already making themselves, making themselves vulnerable and making themselves creatively express themselves, like putting fear into that industry, especially if you're in that industry, you're creating things like that's not cool.
Let me ask you this. Let's have a little break the business production meeting right here, because I'm interested in your thoughts on this. Do we invite Lana to come back and talk about this?
Sure, why not?
I don't know.
I'll talk to anybody about anything. So if she's willing to come back and
if she was willing to talk to Variety about this, right? We know that she's willing to be on the record, right? She's not trying to hide from this.
Well, she wants to warn people. It sounds like,
Yeah. I hope that, I think it would be useful for us to have her on and talk to her about it. I'll see if she wants to come back. At the same time, I don't know if she's going to be embarrassed by this. I think we need to handle it delicately. Like what a sad situation for an artist that we really enjoyed talking to, or who we thought was super cool and super talented.
Yeah.
It
is the learn from it thing. And I think that if you've gone through something that cruddy, you can hide or you can use it to empower yourself somehow. Mm-hmm. And I think that she's kind of shown in the past that she tries to pick the route of I'll find a way to make myself use this as an asset and not as a flaw. And so hopefully that's the stance that she's taking as a, all press is good press. And if they're going to do that crud to you and you're going to go through that, you better get your name and yourself out there as much as you can off of that. Fine. I wasn't on a reality TV show about becoming a star, but I was on a reality TV show about getting pranked, and they did it to the wrong people and it hurt an industry. And you know what? I'm going to use that press and that media and that exposure on television. And I'm like, all right. I have to respect her for that. If that's the angle she's taking, good on her.
That's one way to reclaim it. We'll take it.
We'll take it.
So I should also mention to the viewers and listeners as a quick programming note, after the break, we have a fantastic interview coming up in the second segment. I'm really excited for this one. We're going to be joined by Doug Martin and Chris SD. They are two music industry professionals that were instrumental, pun definitely intended,
I was thinking about that,
in the soundtrack of the Oscar-winning Best Picture film, Anora. This is a lovely film. It caught me by surprise because by any objective measure, it's not the kind of movie that you think would win Best Picture. It has a lot of comedic elements. You don't see Best Picture winners being kind of funny, and this movie was funny. It was extraordinarily low budget, and it was extraordinarily independent, but it was a great movie, a great story. Mikey Madison was spectacular in this film. And one of the things that made this movie so magical was its soundtrack and a lot of the amazing songs that were in it, including songs from the Doug Martin group that had a few songs placed in the movie. Chris SD was the sync licensing agent that was crucial in getting those songs placed. So I'm interested in talking to them in the next segment, Lauren, to learning more about the backstory, about how all that came together, how they got connected with the folks from this film.
Especially indie films. Like, how did they find those musicians? How did they? Yeah, oh, that's going to be fun.
Everything about this is a celebration of indie, right? These are indie artists making putting songs, getting them placed in an indie film, and them reaching the very highest of the cinematic heights, winning Best Picture. This is going to be cool. I'm excited for that conversation coming up in the second segment. Before we get to that, though, Producer Lauren, I do want to chat a little bit about some pretty interesting copyright news that came in. We've talked in the past on this show, Lauren, about AI and the extent to which AI can be trained on existing copyrighted works to create these AI platforms, right? Like a platform like Suno.com, for example, or ChatGPT. They don't come up with all the knowledge that they know out of thin air, right? These platforms are trained on a whole lot of written and musical and pictorial graphic works that make these platforms possible, right? A platform like Suno is able to generate music for you because it's being trained on a whole bunch of other music that it learns from to create new music. And much of that music is copyrighted. And so one of the questions has always been, hey, if these AI platforms are being trained on copyrighted music and other copyrighted materials to make their platforms possible, and you're not getting those copyright holders permission to do it, is that copyright infringement? Do you need to get a license from those copyright holders to be able to train your work on those, train your AI platforms using that work? And a key question in that is going to be whether or not that sort of training is considered fair use. Fair use is this special doctrine in copyright law that says even when some use of copyrighted material is considered infringing under the law, we may allow for some of that appropriation in the name of research and scholarship and criticism and some of the other things, that policy goals that we want copyright law to be able to achieve. And so some people have argued, a lot of big tech has tried to argue, that training copyrighted material on training AI platforms using copyrighted material is fair use. And a lot of people have wondered, well, what does the Copyright Office think of that? Like the government department that's in charge of setting all of our copyright policy, do they think it's fair use? And for the first time, we have the first substantive white paper on the subject. The U.S. Copyright Office recently released a major report that was analyzing whether this sort of training using copyrighted works to train AI systems is fair use. And the report doesn't make a lot of sweeping declarations. It does draw one clear line that I think is interesting, Lauren. It makes a distinction between non-commercial uses of AI training versus commercial uses. And here's what we mean by that. So the report suggests that when a developer is using an AI model for profit, right? When it is trying to create a for-profit platform that people are making money off of and that they're making money off of, and they're using copyrighted works to train that platform, that's probably not going to be fair use. They think that's more likely to be copyright infringement. However, if those AI systems are being trained for research or academic or non-commercial purposes, that might have a better chance of being fair use. This is a pretty groundbreaking ruling because there's potentially billions of dollars at stake. Because platforms like ChatGPT and Suno, they need these copyrighted works and they need them for free. Like licensing all of the copyrighted works in the world would not be a financially viable endeavor. And so depending on what courts say about this is going to create a seismic shift in the tech industry. And there are some who are suggesting that the current presidential administration has their thumb on the scale in this in favor of big tech, because not soon after this report came out, coincidentally, the Trump administration fired the Register of Copyrights. And so some people are thinking that, you know, Trump, who's got a lot of big tech people in his ear, wanted to like send the Copyright Office a statement that they don't like the Copyright Office's take on this AI fair use question. They think a more expansive approach to fair use is more warranted. But this is a pretty crazy struggle right now. And depending on how the law comes down on this is going to have huge implications of the future of AI.
Yeah. And it's difficult because you can't take it back. Right. Mm-hmm. And so like once these things have been trained on this information, even if you say, well, it can't be for commercial purposes, but you know, well, we weren't profiting on it, but the people who then used our software are profiting on it. And again, we can't take out that it knows that information because it's using it to formulate the answers it's giving you. And so there is that weird legality thing where it's like, if you make the judgment that in theory you should, because that's why we have copyright law. But you know, protect us, huh? But at the same time, if they enforced that the way they should, it's so broad that like literally things would just kind of stop technologically because you can't undo it. And so I could understand from a government perspective, it being difficult because doing what's right would be really messing up infrastructure that's already in place. So like,
yeah. And there's some who can argue that, you know, not only can you not undo it, but perhaps the train has already left the station, because a lot of folks in the tech industry, particularly with American tech companies, are saying, look, this is already going to happen on the other side of the world anyway. Like China is developing AI platforms. They're not as respectful of copyright law. They're probably aggressively training their platforms on American work. And so if we don't adopt a permissive approach to training AI, we're going to fall behind in this AI race, and other countries are going to develop AI platforms and systems that are going to outcompete the ones we have in the US. And so I think that's a consideration that's in the mind of a lot of policymakers is, has the horse already left the barn here? And do we, you know, is this a necessity to kind of keep up competitively?
They're thinking like, do we need to figure out, you know, how do we regulate going forward, knowing what's already happened versus how do we fix the in theory, the fault that's already happened? Like enforcing, I guess you have to weigh, or they're trying to weigh pros and cons where you go, is enforcing the infraction more detrimental than not enforcing the infractions? Because like, I don't know if I guess that's why we have courts, but like whether it's really in question, whether they used copywritten materials in a way that is not allowed via the copyright, like it's pretty kind of clear that they did, but it's the ability to enforce it. And it's the ability to actually regulate something when you can't really trace it. Like, sure, music is one thing, but let's say I wrote a paper, and let's say the paper that I wrote, the text from my paper was put in by Joe Schmo on a server that has no connection to me whatsoever. And my words are now training the system. And so like, you can't even necessarily trace where stuff came from and who's at fault for it and who's flawed for it and who's responsible for it. And so it's too hard to enforce, I think, is the problem.
And, you know, perhaps that difficulty in enforcement might be one of the things that weighs in favor of a more permissive, fair use type approach to this. But meanwhile, it's artists who are caught in the middle. I think it's a rather powerful coincidence that we have, folks like Doug Martin of the Doug Martin Quartet and Chris SD on the show of SyncSongwriter.com, who are in an industry that is going, they're both working in industries that are going to be disrupted by AI, which is sync. Right? That's the, the next dimension of this is
here's my movie,
make
my background track. Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
I said, here's my movie, make my background track.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I mean, I'll tell you the moods I want to have happen and I want you to just make it for me. Like that's scary.
What a horrifically terrifying prospect. I mean, I can just think of how bad Anora's soundtrack would have been if we just told Suno to just throw together, these sort of like amazing jazz sounds that like Doug Martin and his band brought into that movie to help bring that powerful story to life. And look, like I'm not a Luddite when it comes to AI, right? We use AI on this show a lot. We make, silly little guest intro songs using AI. Like we see the potential in the platform, but at the same time, we would never explore using AI in a way that would actually have a substantive artistic impact. Like we'll make goofy, stupid songs in them to make us laugh. We do the AI Overlord tip of the week because the answers are silly and dumb. But like there's certain things that we want humans to make. We want humans to do the soundtrack for Anora to make that amazing movie get to an even higher Best Picture winning level. And I would be terrified if a bunch of film companies, record companies, decide that, it's not worth spending that extra money to have a human make something that's a 10 out of 10 because we want to get a 5 out of 10 work from AI for 1/100th of the price. And how the copyright law comes down on all of this is going to dictate whether or not we have that world or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I'm wondering if our two guests are going to be interested in talking about that, or if, like I mentioned AI, and they're just going to sprint off the air and we never see them again. I guess we're all going to find out in the next segment. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back in 2 minutes with Doug Martin and Chris SD. It's going to be a great chat. Keep checking out Break the Business. Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan A. Kairalla, PA. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida. rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Welcome back to Break the Business, everybody. Ryan Kairalla here with producer Lauren. This is going to be an exciting guest interview. I want to get right into it. Let's go ahead and bring out our guest this week.
Lights, camera, music, they're making it shine. Oscars in their wake, crossing the line. From the heart to the soul, they're breaking the mold. Doug and Chris with a story so bold.
Our guests this week are two gentlemen who are valued contributors to the amazing music that you heard in the 2025 Best Picture Oscar-winning film Anora. Joining us are the band leader of the Doug Martin Quartet, who had 3 songs placed in the film, and the Juno Award-winning CEO of Indie Sync licensing agency Sync Songwriter. You can find out more by visiting syncsongwriter.com. We are happy to welcome Doug Martin and Chris Esty on To Break the Business. Hello to you both.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Ryan. Hi, Lauren.
Hello.
Doing so well. I'm excited for this. Anora, gentlemen, was a huge win for low-budget indie films. I mean, so cool to see a movie like this win the Academy's biggest prize. And though it is, on one hand, a celebration of indie film, it's also a celebration of indie music with so many independent artists featured in this film through their song. Do you have any insight on what inspired the makers of this film to put so much indie music in this movie?
Yeah, I should probably answer that, Doug. Good to see you again, Doug, by the way.
Likewise, man.
Yeah. So essentially the real nutshell of this is I run a company called Sync Songwriter. And just so you know kind of where I'm at in the industry, I'm not an agent. I'm not a library. What I do is I introduce indie songwriters directly to music supervisors. So music supervisors are the people who actually procure the music for the directors and the producers. And they're kind of out there trying to get the music and they clear it and everything like that. And there was this kind of, early way back when it was this whole idea of like you either had to be in a library or you had to be on an agency. And, you're basically as an artist, though, you're a needle in a haystack, right? You're just sort of sitting there hoping somebody comes along and finds you. So I thought, you know what, there's a spot for this because I knew a lot of people in Hollywood and people who work in TV and film. And I thought, why can't my friends be the friends of indie songwriters? So I'm kind of like, I'm not an agent. I'm more like a door guy. So I've got this exclusive kind of club and people show up and I let them into this kind of place. But I have to train them before. So they have to go through like a little course to make sure they know what they're doing. And so that's how this whole thing came about, is essentially Doug, joined Sync Songwriter, and I introduced people like Doug to music supervisors, and the magic happened. I mean, between these guys, it was just amazing.
I love that.
It was very much magic. And on paper, it seems inexplicable that it would be so magical. When I think of, we think of the plot of Anora, right? We have a movie set in the Bronx about a sex worker who gets caught up with the Russian mob, right? So we have the U.S., we have Russia, and at some point somebody said, you know what music would be perfect for this movie? Canadian jazz. And damn it if it didn't work really, really well. Doug, I'd love to get your perspective. How did you get acquainted with this movie? Like, did you think in your wildest dreams that your music would fit so perfectly for this film?
Well, no, not at all. When I was first approached by the music supervisor, he said, I want to place 3 of your tunes in this indie movie. And are you amenable to that? I said, well, yeah, of course. And it was just an indie movie. Who knew, And then, the tunes got placed. And then the next thing I know, the film is being shown at Cannes, in France, at the Cannes Film Festival, and it wins the Palme d'Or, for crying out loud. Okay, well, that's the first one.
That was just the beginning.
Yeah, well, I thought that was, I figured that's amazing, and I'm really thrilled about that. But that's probably the end of it. Well, it wasn't. Then the film got nominated for a whole whack of Oscars, and it won most of them. So that was, beyond thrilling. I was practically in tears at that point.
And I guess you
really amazing.
Yeah, and I think you implied this in your answer a bit, Doug. But just to make it clear, when you got these songs originally placed in this film, did you have any possible reason to believe that the movie that these songs were going to be in was going to be the phenomenon that it was?
Oh, definitely not. No.
Is this the first?
It was a placement. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, is this the first time you've ever had one of your songs placed in a motion picture? Because if it is, like, God, how are you supposed to top this?
Yeah, it was. It's the first time that I have had music placed in a film. I've had music placed in TV prior to that, but this is the first time it was ever placed in a film, and what a beginning, you know. I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a trend here.
I mean, if I'm a music supervisor, I'm going to think of Doug Martin's music as probably a good luck charm at this point.
That's what I'm saying. And now you can say every film that my music is in has won an Academy Award.
Has won Best Picture. Like, Doug Martin is a kingmaker.
I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah. These films would be nothing without my music. You know,
I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but I think we were all thinking the same thing there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, since we're, speaking of awards, let's take things over to Juno Award winner, Chris SD. Let me ask you about our conversation that producer Lauren and I were having before the break, because I'm interested in your perspective, right? You're in the sync business. Your job is to help human musicians place their human creations in films and TV shows created by other humans. When you look at what's happening with AI, and particularly the implications for copyright law and what it might mean for your industry, like, where's your head at with all of that right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I was backstage listening to you guys talking about it, I was like, oh, that's great. We're going to talk AI. It's awesome. So I look at this whole thing as very similar to chess. So if you've ever noticed, you probably don't watch chess, but the interesting thing is computers have been able to beat humans for a long time now, right? The greatest chess masters in the world have nothing on a computer, right? Ever since DeepMind or whatever it was. And so it can beat people handily. And yet people go and watch humans play chess. It's televised. It's like in the news, people accusing each other of cheating, and it's all this whole thing. Or you think back to like the 80s, when they had the hair bands and really high production and all this other stuff. And out comes this guy, Kurt Cobain, who's not maybe the best technical singer, but he just blows the socks off things, right? And people didn't want the kind of the slick, hyper-produced stuff, And I think AI is very similar right now. It's not unlike when auto-tune came out and everybody was like, oh, auto-tune, It's not to the point where it's going to be able to create what you were saying earlier, Ryan. It's not going to be able to create what artists can create at this point. That day may arrive, and I actually certainly think it will, but we're not there yet. And the thing is, something my wife likes to say is it's like trains and planes. It's like if you're working on a train and all of a sudden the train's going obsolete, you got to move to planes. So I think we're all like that in the world, like all of us. So I think both of you are like that too. You've got to pivot, you got to move. And I could see singer-songwriter becoming, maybe 5-10 years down the road, more of a boutique kind of thing where it's like, we're only human, we don't do AI. If you want humans, we're smaller, more compact, leaner and meaner. 80% of the industry is doing AI, but then there's the people want to go to shows. They want to see people. They want to interface with people. And we're there with human music, So who knows? I'm not afraid of it, but no one knows what's going to happen. But life is all about that. It's all change, adapting, pivoting, and all that good stuff. So
I go, when I think about AI taking over, I go back to the 70s when we had the disco craze, and disco music was provided in clubs primarily by DJs, and it was predicted that would be the end of live bands. It certainly was not, was it? Then in the 90s, we had the rise of drum machines, computer-generated drum tracks. That was supposed to be the end of live drummers. It was not. Okay, so I'm kind of feeling the same way about AI. I've listened to a bunch of it, instrumental stuff and vocal stuff that's been generated by AI. And some of it's very good, I have to admit. However, when I'm listening particularly to the instrumentals, there are little things that you hear that, no, why did they do that? That's stupid, So, yeah, I don't mean to demean AI, but nonetheless, I think there's something about people in general wanting to hear other people. Okay, regardless of whether it's as good as anything that AI can produce or not. I think people want to hear other people. Okay, they don't want to go to a club and have a bunch of AI music blasted at them out of the speakers. They want to see a band. They want to see a band. They want to see people up there. So
they want that energy. It's almost like any other artist out there. We're in a creative industry, right? So you'll say AI is better than an artist. It's like you could judge skill, quality, whatever, and you can put 10 artists next to each other and have 10 different people pick a different best quality one. So especially, Chris, correct me if you're wrong, like if it's another artist that you can manage, it's just more content, I guess. But like Doug is saying, like there's a difference in quality, and not quality, but connection to another human. And just like music connects to people, if there isn't a human on the other side, it's kind of hard to feel that connection to the music.
Yeah, and I also think that there's like a certain kind of quality, and I don't mean like quality as in better or worse kind of thing, right? Which we could talk about, but a certain like quality is in like a color or whatever it is. It's like when you go shop at the farmer's market, right? The food, I'd literally cook something tonight that we bought from the farmer's market, and I was just like, my gosh, it's just like better than the grocery store, right? The grocery store is all set up for you.
There's more flavors, right?
And it's just like, you're dealing with the actual farmers, you're getting that thing. And I sort of see that is exactly what Doug is saying. And the whole idea of interfacing with people, like the chess world, it goes in parallel with AI. Like I think AI is going to come. We should welcome it. We should use it for what it is. Well, we could have some nasty parts too, right? That have been all talked about, publicized. But at the same time, it's like understanding that you find your place, and human interaction, like Doug's saying, or human products are hard to replicate in the most perfect way. If we get to a world where that is possible, where AI can completely replace everything that is human, every part of it, then we have a different conversation. We're not even talking about this, but it's a different
And we
problem,
evolved to doing something else, right? Exactly.
Yeah,
a different
right,
piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
So if I bring it back to what you're doing as opposed to what we have AI doing, I used to say like I'm professional middlemaning, and I kind of feel like that's the same thing you get to do. When you're a professional middleman, how much time and energy do you need to take getting to know the artist that you're then connecting to? Because you have a network you're familiar with. You have the artist industry people you do. So when you find somebody new, Doug and his music, how much effort has to go into understanding them and their music to know where to connect them?
Yeah. So it goes back to that, saying, which I can't say perfectly. It's the one about, you can either give someone a fish or teach them how to fish. Right. So that's really what I do is I go out and we only open once a year. Every January, we open our course called The Art of the Song Pitch. We're not open to the public the rest of the time. I'm busy working with the artists that have come on board. I basically throw it out there. And I'm not out there. I'm not like an agent. I'm not picking art. I didn't go to Doug and say, hey, I think, I didn't know Doug. Doug joined me. Like he heard my message. He joined me. And then in the course, what I do is I take everybody in and then I show them exactly what they need to do and what they need to know to do this thing so that supervisors trust them. Because supervisors are like, it's like they're wearing a T-bone on their leg, right? Everybody wants a piece of them because everyone, their dog has a record out. Everybody's got, knows that TV and film are hot to go. There's millions of tracks out there, right? You jump on SoundCloud or whatever. There's all kinds of people calling them, emailing them, and they got to put a barrier up. They're actually super cool people. They're like us, like music people and stuff like that. And but the thing is that you've got to figure out how to connect with them because it unfortunately and fortunately, it's about who you know. It's about relationships. So I have the relationships. So what I do is I bring people in that I don't even know, and then I qualify them through the Art of the Song Pitch. I don't introduce them before they go through the gauntlet, Once they go through the gauntlet, they get certified, meaning that a supervisor is going to trust them. They're going to trust they know everything, right? Could you imagine if somebody showed up, let's pick on, in a band, let's pick on keyboard players again. I'd use this recently. So you're sitting Doug's in a studio writing a song, say, and he writes it, it's copyright, it's like his song or whatever. And then he gets a sync with it. He happens to run into a supervisor. So supervisor's great, and they put it in the movie Anora 2, and this is going to be this big movie and this thing. And the keyboard player comes out of the woodwork and says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I was in the room. I did this hook thing. I'm a writer, and you guys can't use this film. What do you think happens? The supervisor fired, right? Done." And so there's been nightmare stories like that I've heard. And so I have to earn the trust of the supervisors to trust me to meet the indie songwriters. So that's how that works. So Doug came through the Art of the Song pitch, was introduced to supervisors, and then I have another program that's not open to the public. It's only for grads of the Art of the Song pitch. That is much more connection, more connections with the industry. And that's how Doug was able to interface with these supervisors and get this thing to happen. And the very last thing I want to say is, like, I don't look at myself as a middleman. Agents and libraries are more like middle people. I'm like a connector, and sure.
And you're a trainer.
Yeah. But then, you know what? As one student said, Chris gives you a pickaxe and a shovel and then points to where the gold is. So that's my job. I can't dig it up for you, but it's your relationships. Like Doug knows the supervisor. He could talk to him tomorrow and I have nothing to do with it. I don't make a cut. I don't, I love this. I love Doug's got an interface now, and Doug can just roll in with his music because he's super talented, and Doug lives in this tiny town outside of Ottawa, Canada. Like he's the last kind of archetype that you think would get into a big, massive film of the year, but his talent is just overwhelming. It's fantastic.
Okay. I like your nightclub owner analogy now that I hear it, because I was like, you're not connecting them, you're throwing the party so they can connect with each other. You're like, here you go, guys, come together. If you want to meet each other, that's on you. I'm just throwing the party. But it also reminded me of when I went through a bartending school, where you're like, all right, if you want to be a bartender, you can start by yourself. But I, as a bar owner, don't want to hire somebody and then teach them how to make drinks and teach them how the industry works. And so I could go through a program, and at the end, the bars will reach out to that program because they know anyone who went through that knows all the basic drinks, knows how to make the drinks. I don't have to teach them this industry. They know this industry. So there's an incredible value to saying, if this is the industry you want to go in, go to boot camp, learn this industry, and then the people in the industry know I could search the ethers, or I could go to this place that trains the people in a way that I already know they're going to be able to do what I need them to do. And that's valuable to the industry as well. And so I could see how that you're throwing a fun party for the right kind of people to party together, and people show up to the party when there's value on both ends, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Love
Very
that.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I translate.
I mean, and what an experience all of this must be for Doug. Can you talk a little bit about what things have been like for you and the band since this song was placed, since the movie came out? How's your day-to-day different?
Well, I'm a lot busier than I was before.
Well, that's good.
With business stuff, I'm doing this interview with you right now, but this is one of 6 that I've done since this whole business happened.
We're your favorite.
Since the Oscars, the film won the Oscars. So that's never happened before. And so I'm pretty pleased about that. But I'm finding that I'm doing so much business things now with gigs and stuff that, my writing time has been reduced considerably. But that's okay. That's okay. This is like a new phase of my life. And I had more recognition than I've ever had before. And, it's nice, to get recognition from friends and family, of course, always. But I'm getting approached by complete strangers, to do interviews, for example, or to do a gig here, for example, or maybe to, come to their studio and record a couple of tunes or something like that. So to have people approaching me as opposed to the other way around, that's a 180-degree shift in my life. So
if you had your choice of all of those things, what is the next step for Doug and your band? Would you rather take this on tour? Do you want to go live again? Do you want to do more movies, more sync stuff?
Well, definitely more sync stuff. As far as going on tour, I've been there and done that, and my time is up. I'm through driving 1,000 miles in a broken down van and setting up and playing and then tearing down and doing it all again the next day. I'm not saying it would be that bad. I'm not saying it would be that bad, but I'm not into that anymore. Okay. I'll tour, around Ottawa, no problem, because it's a half an hour from my place to there. But no more touring. But composing and syncing that music is really my focus now.
That's fun.
I still do gigs, around town and stuff, and I enjoy that. I love playing, and I will continue to do that until I can't stand up. But as far as syncing, composing and syncing, that is my focus. That's where I'm going now. So
this is all really exciting to hear, because one of the challenges that we often are helping artists navigate through on this program is navigating adversity, right? Now, managing failure. How do you keep dusting yourself off and picking yourself back up when things are tough, as they often are for creative professionals? One thing that we don't get to talk about enough, which I think is an equally important topic, is managing success. Is when you get to that next level, when you get a break, now what? Now I have these new business problems. Now I have these new opportunities. How do I manage them? And it sounds like you're in the middle of that right now, Doug. And and don't get me wrong, it's a good problem to have, but I also don't discount it as a problem, because it's something that you're going to work through. And I'm excited to keep an eye on what your band does to see how you navigate this next phase of your career.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's a bit confusing at the moment. What I'm aiming for is to now bring in sufficient income that I can hire somebody to take care of a lot of this business stuff for me. That's what I kind of need at the moment. I can't do it quite yet. I can't quite do it, but I'm going in that direction, and that will happen. It will happen. So
all I can say, Doug, is if you wish, feel free to stay in touch. If you ever, I can give you my email address. If you ever just want to bounce an idea off me, if there's somebody I can connect you with, anything that I can do, that producer Lauren can do to help you on this next part of your journey, we'd just be thrilled to lend a supportive ear, because I think.
And he's a pretty awesome attorney on a I know a completely unbiased thing, and he would never say anything, but he's the only one I know that's friendly to artists and isn't just there to people.
Oh, okay. That's very kind of you.
I just think this is an unbelievable story, Lauren.
It's so cool.
An
rags to
artist
riches, but it's
getting their first placement in a film, and then the damn thing wins Best Picture.
You've kind of committed yourself to navigating the industry that other people don't really help artists navigate, because, as Chris knows, because he's committed to this as well, if they don't teach you the industry part of this industry, you can have as much skill as you want. It's still a business. This is the entertainment business. You have to know the business side of it. Do you help with things like that, Chris? Are you preparing them for post success? Hey, network with these people, but how do you manage? Or you send them to the boot camp for money management, other people?
Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah, I get you to where you want to go. I get you to the top of the mountain. Hey, what you do after that, is on your own.
When my movie wins Best Picture.
I don't think there's any complaints. We have had a lot of success at Sing Songwriter because of the, just the way the model of being able to kind of put people in front of the right people in a real way, not for sure. Meet them at a conference or have this random pitch session or something like that. It's actually getting to know them and and doing that.
Bartending school.
But
yeah.
there you go. Exactly. But there's like one piece of advice I would give people who might be listening and thinking, man, I wish I could get my music into TV and film. There's a lot of people that think you need to write for TV and film, right? Doug is the last person who would write for TV and film. Doug does what Doug does. And he got picked because Doug is good at what he does. His genius zone is him. Doug does Doug, real well. And so that is the key, is authenticity. So then you think, okay, fine, I write death metal. So now what, right? Well, you don't take death metal and throw it out into the world like, I hope if all someone has to hear it, it's going to succeed. What you need to do is you need to target it. You need to figure out where and who is placing the music that you make. And you can go onto a site called TuneFind, TuneFind, tunefind.com. And it lists a bunch of shows, not everything, but most shows that are on, and tells you all the different songs that were played in each episode. If you find an episode or like a show that does, plays your kind of music, you can actually use that as a target, because now they're looking for your kind of music, right? But the trick is, this is the hugest barrier, and this is why I exist, it's getting someone to hear it. Right? It's like getting someone to actually, it's like the old label days, right? How do you get the label to hear your music right? Even just hear it. And that's kind of what I set out to do, is like to make that happen for indie songwriters who would never have a chance to get through to people like that. Because they're, you just can't email them, right? So that was really what it was. So that's why I set up Sing Songwriter, just for that. Yeah.
Our guests have been the band leader of the Doug Martin Quartet, Doug Martin, and sync songwriters Chris SD joining us this week, and we've been having just an awesome time with both of them. Gentlemen, I got about a minute left before we lose the radio, but I want to ask each of you our final question to close things out. We'll start with you, Doug. Doug, do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
Yeah, if I have one thing I could tell those people, if they really want this, then don't give up. Don't give up. Okay, learn as much as you can, like from people like Chris. Okay, and learn as much as you can. Know as much as you can about the industry, and keep plugging away. Do not give up. Do not give up. Don't give up your dreams.
Well, let us now learn as much as we can from people like Chris. Chris, same question to you. Any last tips for the indie creators out there?
Yeah, I think it boils down to try to work smarter, not harder. So think about everybody out there. Everyone and their dog has a record. Everyone's trying to, do something right with it. There's millions of tracks out there. How are you going to rise above that? And the idea is that what you need to do is focus on whatever your thing is. Maybe it's not me. Maybe it's not sync licensing. Maybe it's touring or building your fan base, whatever. Focus on the things that are going to get you there and invest in those. Instead of that extra guitar that gives you the extra tone or extra piece of gear, go invest in yourself in the direction that you want to go, and really focus on that one direction and go for it. Don't just kind of do a little marketing, do a little this, do a little that. It's just, you're not going to make it. You've got to pick a plan, use your smarts, and focus on something and keep chipping away at that one thing to break through.
That's awesome.
Our thanks to Doug Martin and Chris SD. Thanks to producer Lauren. Thanks to all of our viewers and listeners for checking out Break the Business. We love you. We'll see you next week.
Break